Creo que uno de los privilegios de este programa en esta feria es tener a Amin Maalouf, porque es uno de los grandes en serio del mundo. Hello. Let me start, because I brought my Kindle because I have the 2009 here. So, 10 years ago, you wrote, the essence of my idea is that both have reached the limits of what they could still achieve as separate civilizations, that they are both morally bankrupt, as are all individual civilizations that still divide humanity. And the moment has come to transcend them. So, you were an optimist in 2009, which I don't think you are anymore. Am I wrong?
Well,
you were hopeful. I don't know if an optimist.
I still have hope. It's obvious that things have not gone better since 2009. I think just when one looks around the world, you can have so many examples of things going really bad everywhere, in the north and the south. I was hoping 10 years ago that these civilizations would find a way of transcending their problems, transcending their past quarrels, to build something in common, because the world cannot afford anymore their quarrels.
It was kind of a warning also.
Yes, I think so. I think it was a warning, and unfortunately, nobody heard it. I'm sure that some of my readers might have felt that we should go in that direction, but I don't think the world has gone in the right direction in the last few years. In fact, it is, in my view, it's on the wrong track. I still have hopes, but I feel that we have to correct this track we are on.
In a way, and when I read this, when I went back to 2009, and that's why I had my Kindle and made the notes, because there are parts of the 2009 book of what you tell about, I don't know, Nasser and all that transformation in those years, and the dilemma about legitimacy and effectiveness and democracy. That, am I wrong to think some of the things we're seeing now in the rest of the world with where these guys that get there start destroying the institutions that brought them there? I went back to those times that you described in the 2009 book and said, aren't we, God, 40 years later, 50 years, in kind of the same? No, this discussion about democracy.
I'll tell you a secret. In 2009, I was much more worried than I looked in the book. Because of these problems of legitimacy, I felt that nobody has any more credibility, that so many people around the world are feeling they're left aside. And now, of course, we have so many examples everywhere in Latin America and the Arab world. And yet, when I finished the book, and I was on the point of putting the title and sending it, there was the election of Obama. And I said, well, maybe something will change with that. I was hugely enthusiastic the day he was elected. And then I must admit that I was very much disappointed throughout his tenure. And this book is after the Obama era. I said, I'm telling myself, well, what should we do now? We had people who had undoubtedly moral authority, and they did not deliver. Now we have people who do not have moral authority, and I'm not only talking about the United States. You just look around the world. Nobody has, no leaders, no political leaders, no institution, not the church, not any religion, not any ideology, who still has any moral authority in the world. In reality, nobody. And that's very worrying. My feeling is that the world we have known is dying.
Yeah?
A new world will emerge eventually, but we're not there yet. We're somewhere in between.
And we don't know what kind of world, because without moral authority, these figures like Donald Trump or Jair Bolsonaro in Brazil, or with no moral anything, but they have some kind of legitimacy that the old institutions put on them because they are there for a bold, for a strange thing. No?
You're right. I'm not sure they will fail. Let's take the economy. I'm not sure they will fail. Trump might go in history as one of the best economy-wise.
Which is
So he might still be around. Many people. The problem is not one person. I think there is a pattern in the world everywhere of a different kind of leaders. I do not relate to such leaders, but they are there, and unfortunately they might be there for some time.
Let me go to the 2009 book for one, to ask you if you think that can happen in this transition time, because if I understand you correctly, you see us in this transition time and we don't know where we're going, no?
No, we have just a very vague idea of what to.
Some of those regimes in after the Cold War destroyed themselves more like they were destroyed in a way, no? I mean, communism, for instance.
Of course, communism has collapsed, it has failed.
But the Arab thing with Nasser,
the Arab world,
a little bit by themselves also.
The Arab world is going through probably the worst period in its history.
Right now?
Yeah.
That's how you see it. Right now, the worst period.
There are some elements of hope. When I was looking at what's happening in Sudan. Women demonstrating because they were able to get rid of the laws, medieval laws, that imposed behavior on them, and you should be wearing this and not that, you should be behaving when you are in the public places in that way, something unthinkable in the 21st century. And the Sudanese people were able to get rid of those wars, and they were celebrating in the street. That's marvelous. So there are elements of hope. And there are many countries in that part of the world, Algeria, Lebanon, Iraq, where people are in the street, and I think their aspirations are extremely legitimate and extremely powerful. At the same time, the whole situation in that part of the world is sometimes despairing, because nothing moves really. They were what were called the Arab Springs, and they practically all of them led to failure.
All of them collapsed.
Collapsed and were perverted. In any case, nothing until now is happening in the Arab world that permits a change of course. Until now. Maybe
until now, because one thing we learn in your books and your essays is that you never know where change is going to come from, and suddenly it happens like that.
That's true, and that's the element of hope. One of my favorite writers is Stefan Zweig. He's a marvelous writer, and he was a marvelous person. During the war, he went to Brazil, and at one point, there was one event which for you and me is not a major event. The Japanese took Singapore at that time, in 1942. And he felt it was the end of the world. He felt that that event meant that he had no future in the world, and he decided to die. So even people who are marvelous people, who are marvelous historians, can be wrong, because 6 months after he died, the course of the war had changed, and everything had. After the war, things were going to be much better. So one should always believe there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Even when you don't see the light, you must believe there is a light.
Even if your book is called El naufragio de las civilizaciones.
Yeah, I think we are in the lifeboats. After the naufragio, we're still there.
So we're alive.
We're alive. The boat is sinking, the coast is still not very close, but we're alive.
Is Europe faring better, you think?
Well, if you take the
After
last
the economic
60
crisis.
if you take the last 60 years, Europe have made a huge
Yeah.
progress. But after what's happening in England, the Brexit, and the rise of Euroscepticism everywhere in many countries,
In many countries.
one has to be worried. I think something was not done properly in Europe. The people who were constructing Europe did not dare build a real new country for everybody, a real new power that
that's
could
what-
influence events in the world. So Europe now is in a crisis, and even the existence of the European experiment is in doubt. I still hope that it will eventually rebound.
You're in Mexico, and when you see Latin America, with Chile, what's happening in Chile, or in Bolivia, or in Brazil, no?
I see many elements of hope. Many elements of hope. People are demonstrating, usually for very legitimate reasons.
Yeah.
And
that's
they're
true.
making their voice heard. And I think this would lead to improvement in the course of things.
And because history has proved it, those movements need leadership and a structure to start changing the world.
That's a problem, because usually there is no leadership. Maybe in Latin America slightly more than in the Arab world, for example,
No
where
leadership.
movements can go on for weeks and months and no leaderships appear. So that's a real problem, because at one point the old regimes come back and retake power.
So we're in the lifeboat. Amin Maalouf, El naufragio de las civilizaciones, Alianza Editorial, es una absoluta joya. It's a pleasure and an honor that you were.
Thank you. Thank you.
Buenas noches.